Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's start out in the buff colored prayer book, page 5. These are traditional prayers. Tibetan Buddhism is very rich in that it just has so many traditions within it. And they're all very similar, but they have like a slightly different flavor because it's come down through different great practitioners. Um, and so our particular ones are actually prayers that are specific to the people that are like in our antecedents. And then they were translated, of course. So you see the Tibetan on the opposing page. But interestingly, we've also versified them. So my daughter specifically put the English into a form that uses the same tune as the traditional Tibetan tune. Now, again, with Tibetan tunes, there are many different tunes. It's not like one is better than another. But you actually, and I think we sort of know this as human beings, think of the power of music. Michael Jackson dies, and there's like this huge outpouring of emotion in that. And we feel close to him, even in a way, even though we've never met the guy, have no idea what his opinions were or anything. So it shows this kind of the power of the mind, of the non conceptual mind. So the tunes are used in that way. Everything in Buddhism is an aid to you discovering your true nature. The motivations, everything. So it all works together. And the farther you go with it, you see the incredible inner harmony, which is a reflective of our own inner harmony. Although, as sentient beings, we feel anything but that harmony. We feel it occasionally. We sort of have a sense that it's there, that there's meaning in life, but at the same time, everything appears to be fractured and, um, the multiplicity of appearances. So this is all very helpful because these things work whether you like it or not. They work, and that's the great thing about it because we're not creating anything. We're just unveiling what we are truly, without recognizing what we are. In our ordinary state, we don't. So, for instance, if you think about it, even the prayer gesture, you know, um, it's like I saw some deluded American Buddhist who wrote some book about, he's all tied up in politics, and he had a fist on the cover of his book talking about, and I can't remember what the title of the book was anymore. Was that? Yeah, Radical Dharma, I think. Yeah, I actually had a falling out with one local guy who would come around here a lot because it was his thing. But if you put your hands like this, it's much harder to have the mindset of this. It's just the way it works. We are wired that way. The same thing with taking the shoes off. Now, there's a real practical thing to it, of course. You're keeping the place clean, it's easier and all that. But at the same time, you can't be 101% arrogant with your shoes off. If you're in an argument with somebody, but you got your shoes off, it's like already there's a reason the Nazis had these big jackboots that they wore, and all the impression of that, because it just feeds your arrogance and therefore power, you think, over others. But of course, it's false. That sense of power comes from our feeling of being powerless. So I'm gonna crank up the power appearances. Maybe that'll make me better. Of course, it doesn't. So all these prayers have deep significance. This first one, for instance, is from Jigten Sumgun, which is the immediate predecessor of our way back when. But was a very interesting man who was a layperson, and he was attracted to Dharma, and he was basically hanging out in a monastery. And he had such wonderful qualities that, of course, we're dealing with human beings, right? Of course, the monks got jealous of him because he seemed to be outshining the monks in his virtue. So they drove him out of the monastery, which, of course, is what human beings do. And he eventually got, well, traditionally they say leprosy. We don't really know what he had, but he had some terrible disease. And he said, well, I'm just going to go to a cave and die. I just can't do this. It's just, it's just not manifesting. And he was very, very discouraged. And he went to this cave, Achung Cave, in central Tibet, and he prayed to Tara. And lo and behold, he spontaneously had a great awakening. So one of the prayers that we do in our Tara practice, for instance, is what emanated from him spontaneously, with that vision, and then further the enlightenment of Tara. So Tara is a major devotional figure in Tibetan Buddhism. It's said that the Dalai Lama is considered to be a manifestation of the Bodhisattva of compassion. In Sanskrit, Avalokiteshvara, it means he who hears the cries of the world. And compassion is said to be the great highway to wisdom and complete freedom. So it's said that when Avalokiteshvara was practicing for centuries and even more eons, trying to save sentient beings, and sentient beings were still doing all these stupid things, like not even realizing the situation they're in, not even being motivated to do anything in their true benefit, that he had one moment of discouragement, and one tear came out of his eye, and Tara was born from that tear. So the Tibetans, Tara is like one of their favorite Buddhas. Her story is that eons ago, she met a previous Buddha, and she was inspired and said she wanted to practice and become a Buddha. So she went to the monks and she asked, okay, what can I do? I met this Buddha. I want to become those qualities. So what practice should I do? And the monk said, oh, just hold on a moment. You have to practice. You should pray to be reborn as a man, and then you can come to be a Buddha. And she said, you know what? I'm not doing that. So the Tibetans believe that she practiced, the Indians too, she practiced as a woman and came to full Buddhahood as a woman. And actually, this truth is shown in all of, especially in the tantric practices. It's said that, forgive me, I'm going to give you another little story given by Dingo Khyentse Rinpoche, one of these great lamas who's now passed away. He said, our practice is like you're walking through a poisonous forest. And there are these tall trees with poisonous fruits coming out of them. Those poisonous fruits are afflictive emotions. Not the good emotions, but the bad emotions. Then we act out of those bad emotions and we create negative karma. That's just how we're wired. So what do we do in that situation? He says, well, we're walking through, there's a practices called self-liberation, where you take a very heavy, sharp axe and you chop down the tree. And so the poisonous fruit falls down and there's just no problem like that. Now it's said that heavy axe, it's heavy because it's the concentrative powers of the mind. So if you practice meditation on any object, it can be any object, and just keep going on that. Every time you're distracted, you come back. This is the practice of mindfulness. Eventually, you have a very stable mind. And that stable mind is the weight of that axe. But then it's very sharp. Why is it sharp? Because you're practicing what's called vipassana, which means true seeing. So first you have an intellectual idea that, well, this is delusion, this isn't, it's just a concept, but I'm going to go with it for now and keep practicing it. So when you're practicing true insight, correct view of things, rather than trying to make the whole world revolve around you, if you're practicing in the correct way with this calm, powerful, concentrative mind, it's said to be the concentrative mind is like a lens. So the sun is coming through this window right now, right? It's very nice. But with a lens, you can focus it and start a fire. That fire is awareness. All right, so you can chop down that tree. This leads to self-liberation. It means the end of suffering, end of your personal suffering. It's said that the male form is superior for that kind of practice, for just staying away from the situation and just ruthlessly eliminating the problem. Women can come to this same realization, but the male form, for whatever reason, a little bit more amenable to it. But then the next stage of practice is great compassion. And this leads to Buddhahood for the first time, not just self-liberation, but all the way to full Buddhahood. And in there, you're walking through the same poisonous forest. But now you take a little bit of the poisonous fruit, just a little bit like homeopathy or something, and you eat it. So it's a little antidote to the poison. So what does that mean? It means that we train ourselves to say, we have a list of non-virtues and anger and hatred is bad. That always makes me trouble, right? Okay, so now what is my recognition of that anger in my mind allows me to practice patience, which is the antidote. So there's all these antidotes to everything we're doing. Now, in this way, we actually come to full Buddhahood, not only just freedom from suffering, but actually omniscience. It's really hard to believe. In this form, makes no difference, male, female. It just works the same for everyone. And this is what the Dalai Lama teaches publicly. This is what Khenpo teaches publicly, because it's very safe. You don't have to, we're dealing with our mind as it is right now. But then there's a third level of practice, which is the stuff that's often misunderstood, the tantric levels, pure wisdom. And now you're walking through that same poisonous forest, but lo and behold, you take a big bite out of that poisonous fruit. You're completely transforming the negative energy into positive. And you train yourself even to pretend on that. But because it's actually true and valid, you actually start developing in that way. Now, in this level of practice, the highest level of practice, the female form is superior to the male. Now, the same thing, males can come to full Buddhahood this way too. But nonetheless, there's a lot of kind of richness in this. So Tara is an exceedingly powerful form, and she has many, many manifestations. We practice 21 different Taras here in the center, so it gets set to be confused. But it's all simple because it's about your true nature, all these things. But Tara's basic thing is dissolving fear. Because if you think about it too, when we face the world, and as we imagine ourselves to be, we just assume we're these alienated little blobs of protoplasm, right? Facing this big, bad, angry world. Fear is actually wisdom, but upside down. You should be afraid. My God, it's like my cat looking out and seeing all these dogs or something out there. She's right to be afraid. She sees it as it is, but it's not the ultimate. That's the thing. Ultimately, there's no fear. So we're seeing our true nature through a lens, so to speak. And fear is a natural arising. There's nothing wrong with that fear. But we start looking into the nature of the fear. Okay. So all of that leads us to page 5. Forgive me. I'm Irish. I got the gift of gab. It's a blessing and a curse. Yes, I'm not talking anymore. Page 5. With all enemies who hate me, hinderers who harm me, and those who obstruct my liberation and omniscience foremost, may all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness, be free of suffering, and quickly attain precious, unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. With all enemies who hate me, hinderers who harm me, and those who obstruct my liberation and omniscience foremost, may all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness, be free of suffering, and quickly attain precious, unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. With all enemies who hate me, hinderers who harm me, and those who obstruct my liberation and omniscience foremost, may all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness, be free of suffering, and quickly attain precious, unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. To this end I apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue until Buddhahood. I apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue until death. I apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue from today until tomorrow at this time. All sentient beings equal to the ends of space take refuge in the nature of all the body, speech, minds, qualities, and activities of those thus gone in the 10 directions and 3 times, the wellspring of the 84,000 heaps of Dharma, the sovereign of all the noble Sanghas, the glorious and holy kind root and lineage gurus. We take refuge in the assembly of deities in the Him's mandala. We take refuge in the Buddha Bhagavans. We take refuge in the holy Dharmas. We take refuge in the noble Sanghas. We take refuge in the assembly of Viras, Dakinis, Dharma, protectors, and guardians with the wisdom eye. We take refuge in the glorious and holy kind root and lineage gurus. We take refuge in the assembly of deities in the Yidam's mandala. We take refuge in the Buddha Bhagavans. We take refuge in the holy Dharmas. We take refuge in the noble Sanghas. We take refuge in the assembly of Viras, Dakinis, Dharma, protectors, and guardians with the wisdom eye. We take refuge in the glorious and holy kind root and lineage gurus. We take refuge in the assembly of deities in the Yidam's mandala. We take refuge in the Buddha Bhagavans. We take refuge in the holy Dharmas. We take refuge in the noble Sanghas. We take refuge in the assembly of Viras, Dakinis, Dharma, protectors, and guardians with the wisdom eye. To the heart of awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha's all. In the Dharma and assembly of Bodhisattvas too, I take refuge. Just as all Sugatas of the past brought to birth the mind of awakening, and in each and every training of Bodhisattvas step by step did dwell. Just so for the benefit of beings, I too bring to birth awakened mind. And in each and every training, thus, step by step, I'll train myself like so, till I reach the heart of awakening. I take refuge in the Buddha's all. In the Dharma and assembly of Bodhisattvas too, I take refuge. Just as all Sugatas of the past brought to birth the mind of awakening, and in each and every training of Bodhisattvas step by step did dwell. Just so for the benefit of beings, I too bring to birth awakened mind. And in each and every training thus, step by step, I'll train myself like so. Till I reach the heart of awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha's all. In the Dharma and assembly of Bodhisattvas too, I take refuge. All Sugatas of the past brought to birth the mind of awakening. And in each and every training of Bodhisattvas step by step did dwell. Just so for the benefit of beings, I too bring to birth awakened mind. And in each and every training thus, step by step, I'll train myself like so. In the Buddha, Dharma, and assembly excellent, I take refuge till I come to full awakening. By the merit of my deeds like generosity, may I achieve Buddha being's benefit. In the Buddha, Dharma, and assembly excellent, I take refuge till I come to full awakening. By the merit of my deeds like generosity, may I achieve Buddhahood for being's benefit. In the Buddha, Dharma, and assembly excellent, I take refuge till I come to full awakening. By the merit of my deeds like generosity, may I achieve Buddhahood for being's benefit. May all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness free of suffering. May they abide in equanimity free of attachment and aversion to near and far. May all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness free of suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion to near and far. May all mother sentient beings equal to space have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness free of suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion near and far. By prostrating, offering, and confessing thus, by rejoicing, urging, supplicating too, any little virtue that I have amassed, all I dedicate for full awakening. This ground daubed with fragrant water and with flowers strewn is adorned by Meru forelands, by sun and moon. Seeing this to be a Buddha field, I offer it. May all beings experience this utterly pure land. Om Guru Ratna Mandala Pudza Mega Samudra Saparana Samaye. And now the little blue book together, 37 Bodhisattva practices. Homage to Lokeshvara. I pay constant homage through my three doors to my supreme teacher and protector, Chenrezig, who, while seeing all phenomena lack coming and going, makes single-minded effort for the good of living beings. Perfect Buddha's source of all well-being and happiness arise from accomplishing the excellent teachings, and this depends on knowing the practices. So I will explain the practices of bodhisattvas. Having gained this rare ship of freedom and fortune, here think and meditate unwaveringly night and day in order to free yourself and others from the ocean of cyclic existence. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Attached to your loved ones, you're stirred up like water. Hating your enemies, you burn like fire. In the darkness of confusion, you forget what to adopt and discard. Give up your homeland. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. By avoiding bad objects, disturbing emotions gradually decrease. Without distraction, virtuous activities naturally increase. With clarity of mind, conviction in the teachings arises. Cultivate seclusion. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Loved ones who have long kept company will part. Wealth created with difficulty will be left behind. Consciousness, the guest, will leave the guest house of the body. Let go of this life. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. When you keep their company, your three poisons increase. Your activities of hearing, thinking, and meditating decline, and they make you lose your love and compassion. Give up bad friends. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. When you rely on them, your faults come to an end, and your good qualities grow like the waxing moon. Cherish spiritual teachers even more than your own body. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Bound himself in the jail of cyclic existence, what worldly god can give you protection? Therefore, when you seek refuge, take refuge in the three jewels which will not betray you. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. The subduer said, all the unbearable suffering of bad rebirth is the fruit of wrongdoing. Therefore, even at the cost of your own life, never do wrong. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Like dew on the tip of a blade of grass, pleasures of the three worlds last only a while and then vanish. Aspire to the never-changing supreme state of liberation. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. When your mothers who've loved you since time without beginning are suffering, what use is your own happiness? Therefore, to free limitless living beings, develop the altruistic intention. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. All suffering from the wish for your own happiness. Perfect Buddhas are born from the thought to help others. Therefore, exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Even if someone, out of strong desire, steals all your wealth or has it stolen, dedicate to him your body, possessions, and all your virtue, past, present, and future. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Even if someone tries to cut off your head when you haven't done the slightest thing wrong, out of compassion, take all his misdeeds upon yourself. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Even if someone broadcasts all kinds of unpleasant remarks about you throughout the 3,000 worlds, in return, with a loving mind, speak of his good qualities. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Though someone may deride and speak bad words about you in a public gathering, looking on him as a spiritual teacher, bow to him with respect. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Even if a person for whom you've cared like your own child regards you as an enemy, cherish him specially like a mother does her child who is stricken with sickness. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. If an equal or inferior person disparages you out of pride, place him as you would your spiritual teacher with respect on the crown of your head. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Though you lack what you need and are constantly disparaged, afflicted by dangerous sickness and spirits, without discouragement, take on the misdeeds and the pain of all living beings. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Though you become famous and many bow to you, and you gain riches to equal Vaishravanas, see that worldly fortune is without essence and be unconceited. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. While the enemy of your own anger is unsubdued, though you conquer external foes, they will only increase. Therefore, with the militia of love and compassion, subdue your own mind. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Sensual pleasures are like salt water. The more you indulge, the more thirst increases. Abandon at once those things which breed clinging attachment. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Whatever appears is your own mind. Your mind from the start was free from fabricated extremes. Understanding this, do not take to mind inherent signs of subject and object. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. When you encounter attractive objects, though they seem beautiful like a rainbow in summer, don't regard them as real and give up attachment. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. All forms of suffering are like a child's death in a dream. Holding illusory appearances to be true makes you weary. Therefore, when you meet with disagreeable circumstances, see them as illusory. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. When those who want enlightenment must give even their body, there's no need to mention external things. Therefore, without hope for return or any fruition, give generously. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Without ethics, you can't accomplish your own well-being, so wanting to accomplish others is laughable. Therefore, without worldly aspirations, safeguard your ethical discipline. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. To bodhisattvas who want a wealth of virtue, those who harm are like a precious treasure. Therefore, towards all, cultivate patience without hostility. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Seeing even hearers and solitary realizers who accomplish only their own good, strive as if to put out a fire on their head. For the sake of all beings, make enthusiastic effort, the source of all good qualities. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Understanding that disturbing emotions are destroyed by special insight with calm abiding, cultivate concentration which suppresses the four formless absorptions. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Since the five perfections without wisdom cannot bring perfect enlightenment, along with skillful means, cultivate the wisdom which does not conceive the three spheres as real. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. If you don't examine your own errors, you may look like a practitioner, but not act as one. Therefore, always examining your own errors, rid yourself of them. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. If, through the influence of disturbing emotions, point out the faults of another bodhisattva, you yourself are diminished. So don't mention the faults of those who have entered the great vehicle. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Reward and respect cause us to quarrel, make hearing, thinking, and meditation decline. For this reason, give up attachment to the households of friends, relations, and benefactors. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Harsh words disturb the minds of others and cause deterioration in a bodhisattva's conduct. Therefore, give up harsh words which are unpleasant to others. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. Habitual disturbing emotions are hard to stop through counteractions. Armed with antidotes, the guards of mindfulness and mental alertness destroy disturbing emotions like attachment at once as soon as they arise. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. In brief, whatever you are doing, ask yourself, what's the state of my mind? With constant mindfulness and mental alertness, accomplish others' good. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. To remove the suffering of limitless beings, understanding the purity of the three spheres, dedicate the virtue for making such effort to enlightenment. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. For all who want to train on the bodhisattva path, I have written the 37 practices of bodhisattvas, following what has been said by the excellent ones on the meaning of the sutras, tantras, and treatises. Though not poetically pleasing to scholars, owing to my poor intelligence and lack of learning, I've relied on the sutras and the words of the excellent, so I think these bodhisattva practices are without error. However, as the great deeds of bodhisattvas are hard to fathom for one of my poor intelligence, I beg the excellent to forgive all faults, such as contradictions and non sequiturs. Through the virtue from this, may all living beings gain the ultimate, conventional, altruistic intention, and thereby become like the protector Chenrezig, who dwells in neither extreme, not in the world, nor in peace. Okay. Please feel free to take one of these little books with you as our gift to you. It's composed by a Tibetan monk, I think in the 1300s, 1200s, I'm not sure. But Garchen Rinpoche, the lower forward there, who is truly our main teacher, has said that the entire Buddhist path can be found in this little book. But there are different levels of meaning. There's outer meaning, there's inner meaning, there's secret meaning, there's innermost secret meaning. Dalai Lama has written a book, commentary on the 37 Bodhisattva practices, which of course we can recommend. And Gar Rinpoche has given extensive teachings on it too, which I don't know if it's been put into a book, but we have the text of it. So it's very helpful because it's so accessible. There are some terms in there that you won't know, but they're easily discovered, and ask questions to find out. But just a wonderful practice to go through this, read this book once a day. And it helps because as things arise in your life, it's often mirrored in here. And of course, it brings up questions, and that questioning is good. Again, it's the teaching of Buddhism that we all have Buddha nature. There's a famous statement in the Kalachakra Tantra. It says, all sentient beings are Buddhas. Apart from that, there are no Buddhas. So each one of us is a Buddha, but right now we're seeing things, the directness with which we see things is actually our Buddha nature manifesting, but we don't recognize it. So it's said it's like we're looking on a pond or a vast lake that has a lot of waves on it, agitated. And so we don't see the full moon in its wholeness. We see it fractured. They're like little bits of white light on each one of those waves. So that's the state that we find ourselves in. Now, this state of human being is said to be the most propitious state to be in. It's where we want to be because we have the right combination of mental freedom and intelligence and dissatisfaction. We have enough dissatisfaction that we're motivated to do something about it. There are said to be lower realms of existence where the dissatisfactory nature is overweighing the mental capacity. And so that's very tough. There are said to be higher realms where the dissatisfaction is temporarily gone, almost like a divine kind of state. And those beings can come to enlightenment too, but it's actually harder for them because it's just going so well. It's like, why do anything? I'm just walking around with flowers and communicating to people by glance. And, why everything's so wonderful? Why do anything? But when your good karma runs out, it's said to be that's some of the most intense suffering in the whole universe, is that you can see where you're going to be reborn and it's lower. So you've blown your opportunity. So we have the right conditions. So what do we do? Well, one, this practice of mindfulness, this practice of just focusing your mind, keeping your mind on whatever object of meditation you choose, has the effect of calming the lake. And the waves are our afflictive emotions and our delusion, our strong ideas that we're just like attached to. Nothing wrong with the thinking mind. But when we try to make it into a master rather than a servant, we get in trouble. So these are the agitations, the waves on our big lake. With the practice of mindfulness, what are we doing again and again and again? We are practicing just paying attention to, resting our mind in the object of meditation. And what happens? Well, we get distracted in one of two ways. Either we get agitated, I start thinking about the argument I had with my boss, and I forget that object of meditation, or we get depressed. Now, when Buddhists say depressed, they don't mean the psychological depression that we all think of, but rather just that you're getting slow, like falling asleep while you're meditating. You're just dull. The Tibetans say it's like water going underground. You don't see that it's flowing. So when we catch ourselves, though, our aware mind catches when we're off the object of meditation and brings us back to it. Gartran Rinpoche said that it's like that awareness is like an insect stick that's burning, a little glowing end. And whatever the distraction comes up, our awareness just touches that distraction and it disappears, and we're back to the object of meditation. Now, this is where confidence and faith comes in, because this is a slow, gradual process. And it can be very discouraging, because when you first start on this path, it's like, again, a bolt of sun rays coming into the building. We think it's pure right now, right? But then when the sunlight comes in, we see all the dust motes dancing there. They've always been there, but we've never seen them. So right now, we think our ordinary people think their mind is pure. But then when they start to look inward in this process of mindfulness and awareness, you see all this stuff. And it can be very discouraging because people judge themselves. They say, oh, I must be a terrible meditator. No, you're actually doing it right. This is wisdom. You're seeing things as they really are instead of hiding from it. So this process of awareness is what we're doing. But we start out in this provisional way of using mindfulness as like a technique, because we can relate to it completely. There's an object. Here's Frank. The object's there. It might be just me in my mind. That's all right. It's fitting in with how my mind is normally working. Subject, object. But the awareness is what corrects it, and we keep coming back to it. Eventually, it's all just awareness. This is like the highest state. There's no need for mindfulness anymore, because one is never distracted. These are very high meditative states. But at the same time, that lake with all the waves are stilled, and for the first time, you see the full image, the image of the full moon in all its beauty. Now, it's a reflected image. You're not actually seeing the real thing, but you're not distracted, and you are now putting the full power of your mind in this exploration of the nature of the moon. So even though it's reflective, it's like way, way better than the agitated mind. So this is the practice of, again, vipassana, true seeing, latong in Tibetan. And you're practicing on the nature of the mind. And again, this gradual process, eventually you experience the moon itself directly instead of this indirect way like we're doing right now. And you become the moon, you might say. So this is the process that's going on, no matter how elaborate the meditation seems, whether it's mantra, whether it's elaborate visualizations, whether it's the practice of the 10 perfections of, giving, of ethics, of patience. Again, the Bodhisattva path, all of these things have that same kind of quality. So that maybe simplifies it a little bit. So I wanted to read this morning because there was a professor at Dartmouth College was working on something about anger as maybe a virtue. How do you turn anger into a virtue or something like that? And my daughter, who's at NYU, plugged into the discussion they were having online. And I just thought I'd read that because I found it interesting and helpful. I want to give you a flavor of this. She says, "Dear Dr. Onuma, this message may be coming too late to be of use, but I'm just catching up and unfortunately missing several weeks of posts because I neglected to update my email address." We're always in the real world, right? I think your colleague's question may put the cart before the horse. As I see it, the question should be, can anger be a virtue in Buddhism? As you know, as I know, you are more than fully aware, most Buddhist traditions are extremely reluctant to ever call anger a virtue, or even to acknowledge it as a spur towards virtue. Given the weight of intention in Buddhist evaluations of the morality of actions, it is extremely difficult for Buddhist traditions to accept anger as a force for good. Virtuous action simply cannot be rooted in a non-virtuous motivation. Similarly, an individual's anger might be understandable, but it's never justified or righteous. Anger always brings suffering as its fruit. I taught an undergraduate seminar on Buddhist ethics last year where we worked up to in-class debates on 3 questions, one of which was, can anger ever be a force for good? In phrasing the question, I specifically avoided the technical word of virtue in hopes of eliciting the type of conversation I think your colleague might have in mind. The students who argued for anger as a force for good pointed to instances of skillful means, including the wrath of tantric deities and gurus. But if it is a skillful display, it is not really anger. So these wrathful deities that you see up there appear in a forceful, wrathful way. But it's very interesting because when you actually practice, if you find yourself on a 10-day retreat or something, the mantra, the speech of that wrathful deity is totally beautiful, totally peaceful. You're like moved by beauty. The closest my class got to examples of harnessing true anger for good was Emily McRae's formulation of metabolized anger. In Tantric Buddhism, to the degree that properly metabolized anger can fuel wisdom's fire, it can be a force for good. But there again, if anger is properly metabolized, one is acting out of it only indirectly. So that's Dingo Kensei's example of, in the poisonous forest, picking that fruit and taking a big bite out of it. You're metabolizing it. It's not the anger itself, but your transformation of it. And these are methods that allow you to do that. We can't pretend to do it. That's the other thing. These tantric practices especially are protected. The student is protected from his or her own misuse of the technique by empowerment, by teachings that aren't in the text, and by the support and ongoing criticisms, you might say, of fellow practitioners. So, even if it is possible to identify examples of anger furthering positive change from one or more Buddhist traditions, anyone wishing to present anger as a Buddhist virtue needs to contend with the staggering number of statements found across Buddhist traditions that give anger an unambiguously negative evaluation. I collected a few drops from this ocean for my students, and I'd be happy to share my list with your colleague if it would be of interest. Samyutta Nikaya, which is a text, is an apt example. I've copied Thanissaro Bhikshu's translation below. So here's this translation. So this is from this famous self-liberation text. As she was standing to one side, a devata, that's a divine female goddess, as she was standing to one side, a devata recited this verse to the Blessed One. The Blessed One's the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni. So this happened in India 2,600 years ago. And she says, having killed what do you sleep in ease? Having killed what do you not grieve? Of the slaying of what one thing does Gautama approve? And then the Buddha responded, having killed anger, you sleep in ease. Having killed anger, you do not grieve. The noble ones praise the slaying of anger with its honeyed crest and poison root. For having killed it, you do not grieve. I've been struck recently by, the Buddha taught 360 different wrong views. Buddhism is all about training the mind, and everything we're doing is about training the mind. The example I gave you of the hands and the prayer gesture, it affects your mind. So we can use our body, we can use our speech, we can use the subtle aspects of our mind. It's taught, for instance, that the qualities of our true nature, which are unrecognized, it's like they're covered over by dust or earth. So we're liberating our own minds. It's said that they talk about three aspects to the nature of the mind. One is called Dharma Kaya. Kaya means body, but not like physical body. It's like body of truth, right? And Dharma is basically truth, the truth body. And it's said to be vast. It's said to be limitless. And the Dalai Lama says it's like space. Nothing you can say about it. There's like space in the smallest molecule. There's space in the biggest galaxy. Space is without limit. But it has quality. We look up at the sky in many of these tankas you see, for instance, there's a blue sky in the top. It's like in Tibet, if you're at 18,000 feet and you're looking up, the sky looks even bluer than it does here. But nonetheless, why blue? Because this emptiness is not just a void. It's not just a materialistic nothingness, but it has quality. That blue is beautiful. We can, in our meditations, use that blue to discover the limitlessness of our mind. That's how wonderful this is. So we have this aspect of limitless nature of the mind. And then we have the quality of clarity. I mean, we can see things clearly. Not that we don't get confused, but we can see things clearly, and also we can see things precisely. So these three qualities are there in the nature of our mind, and we're having them right now, but we're kind of using them in kind of a kind of fractured kind of way. This corresponds, these qualities, we're able to liberate our minds. These qualities correspond to three different great experiences in our life. One is being born. This is called the Nirmanakaya. So let me go back to the image first. Dharmakaya is the space, right? The second quality of the mind is nature of the mind. It's called Sambhogakaya. It means the body of bliss. These are the subtle bodies. Dalai Lama says that in this vast space, suddenly are these tremendous cumulus clouds. And they're tremendous. We can't touch them. But their existence is a subtle form. It's form enough that we can relate to them, because it's hard for us to relate to limitless space. But we can relate to them more easily. And even though they're form, they emphasize the vastness of the formless. But it's accessible to us, more accessible to us. These are all the visualization practices and all the different Tara is one of those clouds. And then finally, there's the Nirmanakaya, which is it's called a deceptive body of the Buddha. And this is something that always gives me confidence. When the Buddhists talk about their own historical founder, Buddha Shakyamuni, as being in a deceptive body, but it's still a means by which we can come to truth. So it's deceptive because some people saw the Buddha and he was just an old man sitting under a tree. Nothing special at all. Other people came to Buddhahood through seeing his nature. So these three aspects, the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, the Nirmanakaya, are experienced in our ordinary life. When we die, there is an experience of Dharmakaya when we come out of the swoon, so to speak. People miss it, of course. It's said to be like the snap of a fingers. If you're not trained, you don't see it. But it's there in our life experience right now. Each one of us is going to have this experience of the Dharmakaya arising clearly in our mind. It's said that the longer you have practiced virtue, the more virtuous things you've done, this kind of momentum of good behavior, good training the mind, all of that snap of the fingers seems to last longer. So there's a better opportunity to access it in full Buddhahood right there. But then between, if we miss that, we go through what's called the bardo, or the in-between state, the space between dying and being reborn. And in that bardo moment, this corresponds to the Sambhogakaya. There are all these, the body is free. We don't have a body. Nothing's anchored in the body. So our mind, it's just like right now, you think about Jupiter, you can be there. I mean, maybe you're not experiencing it as if someone who was there, but what I mean is that the mind is limitless in the speed of thought. And so this is the Sambhogakaya, and this is a very, very propitious situation because, again, if we're trained, the mind is not right now. We start meditating, and within 5 minutes, if you're like me, it's like, oh, my back, whatever's going on. But with the body's not there, the mind is said to be, the Tibetans, they love these numbers, like 19 times more powerful. But of course, that can be bad because if suddenly you're hating your buddy, you got 19 more power of the negative thought too. So again, if we're trained, you miss the Dharmakaya, but eventually these are not made up figures. Tara appears. When you recognize Tara, that is enlightenment. If we miss all of that, which is what happens, we're running around in the bardo doing one thing or another, it's said that you're reborn. And in that, we are in our Nirmanakaya body. Deceptive. We're Buddhas. It looks limited, but it's not really. So in our own limitations, we discover the limitlessness. So in the thought itself seems to be limited, we see the vastness in each thought. So all of this is just this tremendous pouring out of methods that we can use. But in the sense, it's very simple. It's just about our true nature and suffering. It starts, the Buddha, I think, it's just such a genius when he hesitated to teach after his great enlightenment because he just saw that it seems almost endless what people can do for fame and gain. They can pervert anything. And we see this all the time in our waking life. We see it all the time with ourselves too. I mean, someone comes in right now, and if we're meditating, let's say Tara has a golden crown, I can think of that gold in a very pure, non-attached way, just this beautiful appearance of gold in her crown. And you can, it's just a beauty, wonderful. But someone walks in the room and says, you know what? I've got a pound of gold here that I want to give to White Lotus. So what happens to me? My immediate mind is attached, right? I'm thinking even good thoughts, but I'm thinking, we better up the insurance in case it burns down right now. We want to make sure we don't lose that gold. I'm thinking, where should we put the gold? Should we give it to my brother, the stockbroker? Maybe not. But all those kind of thoughts are coming out. So immediately my purity is gone. All of this is useful stuff. It's all just method. Buddha said his teachings are like the finger pointing at the moon. But don't mistake the finger for the moon. This is the great saving grace of Buddhism. They're human beings. They've gotten in their own battles and everything, but they've never been running around with the sword of Buddha cutting other people's heads off, because they know that their teachings are provisional. They're tools. It's like you get a laptop and suddenly this whole world can open up to you. The Dharma is like that. your own internal world, which is vaster than what's on that internet, it suddenly becomes accessible to you. It might be in a limited way, like just putting your hands together. But all of these things, 2,600 years of, you might say, trial and error, cause and effect. So it's helpful. Yeah. So when the Buddha talked about 360 different wrong views, again, mind is the king. It said that the mind is the king. Everything we're doing is coming out of our mind. Even our very existence has come out of the mental processes that we had in the past. Speech is like the minister of the king. It can go anywhere, and it's doing what the mind tells it to do, what the king has told it to do. So the minister has great power. So like when our president sends a secretary of state somewhere, those other people are taking that secretary of state as if he or she is speaking for the president, him or herself, right? But the body is said to be like a servant. It's just following along after the whole deal. All of these things can be used. So in this training of the mind, in the higher teachings, it talks about these 360 different wrong views. Buddhism called itself the middle way between these 180 wrong views that are said to be nihilism, which is just, there's no meaning. We're just mindless protoplasm, mindlessly mutating, and there's nothing to it. You come out of nothing, and there's temporary consciousness, which is just an epiphenomenon of biology, and then you die and it's all over. That 180 view is one sort or another like that, which in some of these existed in ancient India, the Buddha's time. I can't remember what their name was, but they had one particular school. Then there are 180 degrees of wrong views that are called eternalism. Eternalism is the belief that there's a God of some sort or another that is creating and governing everything, but you can't get there. There's like this gap between you and the creator. And to try to get there is heresy, and you're in big trouble. So Buddhism takes the middle view of all of that. And yet it's, what do we do as human beings? We go to one extreme or another. It's kind of like addiction, right? You're just saying, oh, I'm always running after whatever my addictive thing is, and I know I'm getting into trouble, and then I think I'll just stay away from it 100%. We go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And Buddhism is the middle way, somehow handling all of that. Miraculous, really. But the Buddha hesitating to teach has always made me feel confident in that. And it said that the gods of ancient India appeared to him and said, no, you have to teach, because there are beings for whom the dust over their eyes is thin and they will benefit. And so he did for 45 years. All that's come down to us. I mean, this verse 2,600 years ago, the amount of literature that exists from Buddha's time. I mean, first it was recorded orally and then written down. But it's just a vast library compared to any religion. It's really kind of amazing. But even the word religion is kind of tricky for us because we're all conditioned. We grew up in America and we have certain kinds of conditioning. I often notice, for all these years, trying to train myself in this, but seeing the reaction of people who come in and, they see a Buddha statue in that. So sometimes we have agnostic or atheistic people who will come in and they're attracted to the psychology of Buddhism because it's very sane. But then they see a Buddha figure and that's like a problem. This is too religious for me. But then we have theistic evangelists. What are they called? I can't remember. The Christian fundamentalist types. Who might come in. And this is not religious enough for them because Buddha is not a creator God. And this is the Dharma. It's the middle path between the two. And this mirrors our own back and forth, back and forth. We want things to be solid. We want something I can hold on to and rely on. But at the same time, we want limitless freedom without anything goes. Can't nobody tell me nothing. It's all just our mind. And they've been working with this for a long time. Lama Tarchin, a great teacher, he said it's like you're in the middle of the ocean or a big lake, and you're drowning, you're floundering, flapping around. That's samsara. And then a boat comes by, and they throw you a life raft, and that boat is the Dharma. He says you grab onto the rope that they throw you, and you start pulling yourself into the boat. And you can go really fast if you want. You can go really slow. You can go fast and then take a rest and go slow a little bit, go faster. He says, just don't let go of the rope. That's all there is to it. It's fail proof, fail safe, or whatever the word is, because it's our nature. It's this image of the lotus. The lotus is unfolding. We can't just tear open the petals, but it's rooted in the mud. Our ordinary existence here, we don't discard any of that, but we start seeing it in its true nature. And we're using it as a finger pointing at the moon. Okay. So, sorry, I got a little, what's the word? Prolix. Running at the mouth. Can't help it. Can't help it. So, yeah, please take the 37 Bodhisattva practices, plug into us as you can, and let's take a little break, and then we're going to do just a little long life mantra for up on the right. And where's Chetsam Rinpoche Gretsch? To the right or the left up there? To the right. Our center is actually in his organization. He's just gone on his second 3-year retreat, I think, in Ladakh. And so we're doing some long life practice for 4 months. Pardon? He's 70, just turned 80. That's right, just turned 80. His second one, yeah. And he once, when he first, he was persecuted by the Chinese in Tibet. And then when he escaped, he talked to the Dalai Lama, and they agreed for him to reestablish, this whole lineage that he's the head of outside of Tibet. And at one point, he was in America. When he first came to America, he was working in McDonald's in Texas. You see true humility. All right, so we'll do a little of that, and then there's one other practice that we'll do if we can get it right with music. So take a break. We'll ring a bell when it's time to come back.
Frank, what music do I need to queue up?
So, they're doing the prayer. Yeah. That's right.
Girlfriend was looking for you the other day. She was out there.
She was out there?
Yeah. So she was up. She came in and she was up in different trees. I was so excited. Sorry about that.
Did you survive?
I did. No, I was curious. I have a question. What's the difference between Tibetan and Zen?
Yeah.
Because I went to the Zen center once,
Uh-huh.
and now I'm here. I didn't realize it was Tibetan, and I don't know the difference.
Yeah, right. My wife and I were done something for 16 years,
Oh,
and then happened to be in Tibet and it wasn't really a choice. It just kind of like we had those. Tibetan Buddhism came from India,
okay.
and Tibetan Buddhism is interesting and a little bit. If you can find a practice in the Buddhist world, you can find it in Tibetan Buddhism. So it's very equivalent, but not the other way around. And it's because Buddhist practices are not just sort of made up by some charismatic person on the spot, but rather than being calmed down from the Buddha himself.
Right.
So Tibet is unusual in that Tibet had conquered capital China. They were like this military power in Central Asia. And then the emperor decided, okay, we need Buddhism. So they sent their best and brightest over the Himalayas to India, and they actually developed a written Tibetan language, which is the language language. And it was 1,500 years after the Buddha passed away, so it was the biggest development, the full development of Buddhist culture in India 1,500 years after the Buddha. That's what the Tibetans transmitted.
Okay.
So they have the full range of everything. So Zen practices, for instance, there are practices here that are very similar, although they're sort of done in a different way, they're a little bit more relaxed.
Okay.
And some of the practices that you won't find, the tantric practices of visualizing yourself as the Buddha,
Okay.
yeah, you won't find that.
In Zen. Okay.
So Zen is the same thing of mindfulness and awareness.
But they have the same teachings.
Yes,
They do have the same teachings. They just don't, maybe not the same, all the same practices.
yeah, it's expressed, and so there's what I found.
I have a Christian background, so like it's
Yeah.
kind of like the different types of.
Yeah,
I can relate it to like the Presbyterian versus like a Lutheran.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But it's even closer than that.
Oh, yeah,
Because
yeah.
The Buddhists never had like Martin Luther,
Right.
saying you
Yeah,
guys are
that's
wrong.
true. Yeah, that's
So
true. No, that's true.
and that makes it easier.
Yeah.
Because you'll never hear a Tibetan Lama criticize Zen Buddhism.
Yeah.
It's just different, but they're all doing the same thing. Yeah, sort of. But it can be kind of funny because the outer appearances can be so different. So, as I know Zen, you need the colors in black and white, you just things down and like that.
I'm just trying to broaden and meditate. I'm trying to meditate more
Yeah.
and get a better understanding on,
So that's yeah,
the human psyche.
Yeah.
Like you brought up the psychology thing, like,
Yeah.
but like I also, this is the other thing I look into. What was it? It's the thing from, Hermeticism, the ancient Egyptian religion.
yeah.
I read books on that
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well. It's very similar.
Yeah,
It's very similar with the mandalas, with
Right.
the way they meditate,
right.
with the way they meditate on them.
Yeah.
Their deities are different, right?
Yeah,
But the way they meditate on the mandalas, because you can see it,
yeah.
the
Yeah,
it's
very
all.
no
I
short,
see the connection. I always try to find the connections
Yeah.
when I
no
when I
shortage, no
approach
shortage of symbols.
when I approach religions. I always try to look for the connections and not the differences.
Yeah, and that's very good because it's really true. For instance, with Christianity, for instance, the great mystics to me are very Buddhistic.
What's the author? There's an author. He wrote tons of books. The Power of Now. He would compare.
Oh, totally.
Eckhart Tolle. He was always comparing Christianity with Buddhism, preaching about how similar they really were. Christ's teachings and Buddha's teachings.
Absolutely.
And I agree.
There's all sorts of stuff like that. In my own experience too, it was after meeting, coming into what I call a movie on this, that I reread the New Testament. But with a different understanding.
I just read the New Testament this year. Yeah.
Yeah, when Jesus said, "My Father's house is many rooms."
Absolutely. And there's 7, they say there's 7 different versions of his last words. Father, they forgive, they know not what they do, or there's 7 different versions. And some people say, well, there's right with the written as a order because there's 7 chakras. Maybe
There you go.
people are experiencing people live on different planes of existence and they just hear,
Yeah.
they're all very, very similar, but
Yep.
We all have our different versions of reality.
You can look it up if you want. I have a feeling that people will support. Well, that woman grew up really in Homewood, Illinois, so she would know what to get. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, but, I mean, not to get something, but the person to back. I mean, if you just want to talk to them. Or if that's one with a very particular thing.
That's like one of those.
Yeah. I'll see if I can get it. I'm doing a lot of dog sitting stuff, so I'll have her go over it. To be for that creepy one. That's two things the serial cover to do. I never do that.
So the way I do this for a while, Linda and my dog, Linda's friend MJ, she asked me to figure out her, and she goes, she looks at, she finds those, characters, and the she's like, oh, so she's driving up the house, and said, you do this grass. It was really specific. She said, look at it, you know, grass. And so I would never say about it and say, I would love to and I would think about this how to do it.
Yeah, it's like all happy and happy with the homework.
So anyway, I filled out a different.
Crazy.
Right?
Are you laughing?
That's
You're
crazy.
crazy. It's just like, oh yeah. Dog, sorry, I was telling everybody yesterday.
Yeah.
So sorry.
So I got, I had to come and she's a mom.
Oh.
And she really one of the babies.
You're okay. Well,
No, they
Because
don't.
it's been passed from purified.
He was long hair.
Well, supposedly,
I don't know, but anyway.
So, I mean, I love her. You're so sweet.
Very.
Peaceful. It was very chill. It's call him Kelly. Is he older? He's
How's Charlie doing, Charlie? Where's Charlie?
Yeah, took Campbell to Virginia. And
Gee, that's
stayed for several
fantastic.
days. And then yesterday he just came back.
Oh. Campbell's still there?
Campbell's still there. But Charlie did some sightseeing of like, it was, one of those like,
Yeah, that's
and she had where there was that big battle.
and Gettysburg.
He didn't make it to Gettysburg, but he was spent a lot of time there, so he ended up getting home late. So he just kind of got out, but I don't know, he maybe took it in or else he
Yeah.
So he's just tired, but he said that he had a great time. And he spent a lot of time with the llama, and he stayed with the monastery. So I'm not sure. if
Campbell's so pretty.
Yeah, okay.
They do these things.
Sorry, I'm like,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm like, it was so absurd.
Yeah, pretty long.
Like, it was just like,
so I'm sure it was a beautiful drive.
totally branded.
Yeah, but
Dave.
yeah, no,
You had like a more dark
Dave.
love.
Oh, geez.
but
Virginia was
got back yesterday?
Yeah, yeah, he got back last night at like,
You know, initially I was gonna make dinner for him, and he's like, no, I'm running late. And like, I was home at like 9 or 10:30 or 11. I want a dog.
he's a bit of a punter, so he likes to kind of really like check out sights.
He and I are
Okay, did we pass out the Amitayos too? Everyone have one of these? Keen, would you make sure that gets passed out? Yeah. He's gonna pass it out. There you go.
One more. I was gonna grab this too, I wasn't sure if I needed it.
Yeah. They always pass it out.
Okay, pretty good. Okay, so welcome back. We're doing a little Amitayos mantra every Sunday in our support of the Dugan Chabgans retreat. Amitayos means infinite life. So there's one Buddha. Amitabha means infinite light. And then Amitayos means infinite life. So it's light and life. They're the same Buddha, but it's just slightly different manifestations. But that's that picture that you got there. So we'll do this in English, and then we'll recite the mantra together a little bit. and then do the dedication at the end of this, all in the English today. And then we're next going to do, along with a tape of the music, this aspiration prayer of Samanta Bahadra, which is a Dzogchen text. Okay, so Amitayos together. Amitayos, foremost guide of this world, glorious subduer of all untimely death, refuge for helpless sentient beings, I prostrate to Buddha, boundless light. Om Amaranezi Wantaye Soha. Om Amaranezi Wantaye Soha. Om Amaranezi Wantaye Soha. Om Amaranezi Wantaye Soha. Om. Om Amaranezi Wanda Yeso. 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 Om Maranezi Wande So Maranezi Wande Yeso. By this virtue may I swiftly accomplish the protector Amitayus and establish all beings without exception in his state. Okay. Now the aspiration prayer of Samantabhadra. Samantabhadra is both a Buddha and also is a great bodhisattva. It's very, very popular in China, especially the bodhisattva Samantabhadra. But in this case, the Tibetan translation of Samantabhadra is Kuntu Zangpo, and it basically means pure from the beginninglessness. So this is a Dzogchen text, highest, great perfection text, great completion text, it's called. The lineage of it is Kuntu Zangpo. Samantabhadra is this blue Buddha, and the transmission came directly from Samantabhadra to Vajrasattva, this great Sambhogakaya Buddha, and then to a human being called Gyarp Dorje, who is said to have lived 500 years before the Buddha, and then eventually to Guru Rinpoche, who's the great tantric master of Tibet, 1,000 years ago or more, 1,500 years ago. So we sing this together, and there's a tune that goes with it that we have a recording of. So please, Dave, let it go.
Everything in samsara and nirvana that can possibly appear as a single ground. Two paths and two results, the miraculous display of awareness and unawareness. Through the aspiration prayer of Samantabhadra, may all awaken in a fully perfect manner in the palace of the Dharma Dhatu. The crown of all is unconditioned, the self-arising, inexpressible, vast spaciousness, without the name samsara or nirvana. The awareness of just this is Buddha. Unaware sentient beings wander in samsara. May all beings of the three realms be aware of the reality of the inexpressible ground. I, Samantabhadra, am aware that this very reality of the ground without causes and conditions is self-arising within the ground, unaffected by the flaws of outer and inner superimposition and denial, and untainted by the stains of the darkness of mindlessness. Therefore, self-appearances are not blemished by any flaws within self-awareness resting in its seat. There is no fear even if the threefold existence is destroyed. Nor is there attachment to the five sense pleasures, non-conceptual self-arising mind. Neither solid forms nor the five poisons exist. The unceasing dimension of awarenesses, lucidity is of a single essence, and yet displays as five wisdoms. The five original Buddha families spring forth from the maturations of these five wisdoms. Through wisdoms fully unfolding from them, the 42 Buddhas originate. Through the dawning of that dynamic energy, Of the 5 wisdoms, the 60 blood drinkers come to life. Their foreground awareness is never diluted, since I am the original Buddha. Through my aspiration prayer, may all sentient beings cycling through the 3 realms recognize the face of self-arising awareness, fully unfold great wisdom. My emanations form an unceasing stream, unfurling as inconceivable billions, displaying as a vast array of suitable guidance. Through my compassionate aspiration prayer, may all sentient beings cycling through the 3 realms leave the 6 kinds of existence behind. At first, sense deluded sentient beings do not dawn as awareness in the ground. They are absolutely mindless and oblivious. Exactly that is unawareness, the cause of delusion. From within that vacuous womb, a fearful, vague cognizance stirs. From that self and others as well as enmity arise. Through the gradual blossoming of latent tendencies, samsara unfolds, taking its natural course. Due to that, the 5 poisons of the afflictions flourish, and their karmas become an incessant flow. Thus the crown of sentient beings' delusion is mindless unawareness. Hence through this aspiration prayer of myself, the Buddha, may all recognize awareness itself. Carnate unawareness is mindless, oblivious cognizance. Imaginative unawareness is the clinging to the duality of self and other. This twofold carnate and imaginative unawareness is the ground of delusion of all sentient beings. Through this aspiration prayer of myself, the Buddha, may all samsaric sentient beings, darkness of dull mindlessness be dispelled. Their mind of dualistic clinging be translucent. Their awareness recognize its own face. The mind of dualistic clinging is down. From the arising of subtle fixation, tense latent tendencies gradually unfold. Be it food, wealth, clothing, places, companions, the 5 sense pleasures or beloved relatives. We are tormented by our attachment to what seems attractive. These are mundane delusions. Karmas of perceiver and perceived are never exhausted. When the results of clinging ripen, we are born as hungry ghosts, tortured by craving. How pitiful is our hunger and thirst. Through this aspiration prayer of myself, the Buddha, may sentient beings full of attachment and clinging neither cast out the torment of desire, nor welcome the craving of attachment, but may awareness take its very seat, through letting mind relax in its own state, and may discriminating wisdom be attained. A A subtle mind of fear stirs around the appearance of external objects. Thus the unfolding of hatred's latent tendencies leads to powerful enmity, beating and killing. When the results of hatred ripen, oh, how we suffer through being boiled and burned in hell. Through this aspiration prayer of myself, the Buddha, when fierce hatreds flare up in all sentient beings of the six realms, may relax in its own state without adopting or rejecting. May awareness take its own seat, and may lucid wisdom be attained. Our own mind being hardy, it vies with others and puts them down. Through the arising of intense pride, we experience the suffering of fighting and struggling with others. When the results of those actions ripen, we are born as a God, experiencing transition and downfall. Through this aspiration, prayer of myself, the Buddha, when sentient beings give rise to such hardiness, may they let their mind relax in its own state. May awareness take its very own seat, and may the wisdom of equality be realized. Triggered by the latent tendencies of rampant dualistic clinging, the competitive mind of fighting and the struggling blossoms from the pain of praising ourselves and disparaging others. Being thus reborn in the Asura realm of killing and slashing, we take a deep plunge into the realms of hell. Through this aspiration prayer of myself, the Buddha, when a competitive mind fighting and struggling dawn, may we not entertain enmity, but let it relax in its own place. May mind take its very own seat, and may the wisdom of unimpeded, enlightened activity be. Mindlessness, indifference, distraction, obtuseness, dullness, forgetfulness, unconsciousness, laziness, and bewilderment result in roaming as animals without any shelter. Through this aspiration prayer of myself, the Buddha, may the radiance of lucid mindfulness shine in the darkness of our bewildered dullness, and may non-conceptual wisdom be attained. All sentient beings of the three realms are equal to myself, the Buddha, the ground of all. But for them it became the ground of mindless delusion. Right now they engage in meaningless activities with the six kinds of karma being life. Delusions in a dream, however, the primordial Buddha, in order to guide the six kinds of beings through emanations, through this aspiration prayer of Samantha Bhadra, may all sentient beings without exception become awakened in the Dharma Dhatu. From now on, whenever mighty yogic practitioners make this powerful aspiration prayer, within self luminous awareness free of delusion, all sentient beings who hear it We're fully awakened within 3 lives. During solar or lunar eclipses, when clamor or earthquakes happen, at solstices or at the turn of the year, if we let ourselves arise, the Samantha Bhadra, recite this prayer within the hearing of all, through the aspiration of us yogic practitioners. Sentient beings of the 3 realms will gradually become free from suffering, and then swiftly attain Buddhahood.
I'll conclude with the prayer book again, page 32. Om Mani Padme Hum Hri. 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 Nyewalin Ludak Chen Rezig Wang Drup Jurchik Drowa Jing Yang Maluma De Sala Gomarshu. Okay. Thank you all. Gretchen will have some announcements here, but thank you for this morning and see you next time. Gretchen.
Hi, everybody. So this week, Tuesday night will be Vajrakalaya practice. Thursday night is study group, and Kempo being out of town for 3 weeks, Frank will be here again on Thursday to either answer questions that have come up in your study of the jewel ornament of liberation, or it may be more wide-ranging than that. That's okay. But it's a good chance for discussion. And I'd like to just say we have quite a few new people here. And there's some information on the bulletin board about membership in White Lotus. We're open and free for, all our regular activities, except for when we bring llamas in and we have, more expenses like travel and feeding them and housing them and things like that. But we only exist through the kind donations of people who are either moved by 1 or 2 visits, or people who come several times and decide that this is a good place for you, for whoever's here, and you want to take part more and more, and then we urge you to become a member. We would like to see you become a member. And there's information about that on the monthly donation for membership is $30, which when I think about myself and how many lattes maybe I have in a week or in a month, if I give up
a couple of those each week, it would practically cover I didn't do the math right here, but
Right.
it's a good way to cover the membership. And it really, helps us survive here and be a place where people can come into contact with the Dharma and, and benefit many people. So I just urge you to think about that and take a look. It's also on our website, which is whitelotusdharma.org. And we welcome you. We hope you would like to come back over and over again. And Kempo, I can't remember, he'll be gone for the next 2 Sundays. So again, and then we'll start in with Jewel Ornament once again. On Sundays, he's teaching through this great text of the Drikun lineage. So, okay, that's enough for me, unless anybody else. No? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Have a good week.
Yes. Have a good week, everybody.